Yes, and actually, I'd like to lift the curtain of how this episode came about. We came together for a reflection of a collaboration that we had because it really touches on topics that are essential.
Hello and welcome to the Regenerative Edge. This is a podcast focused on creating a listening space for founders, directors, and changemakers who are tired of pretending that growing a business and healing the world have to be two separate things. This is not your typical business podcast. In this episode, Moh is joined by Johannes from Unity Effect to explore the source principles, where ideas begin, who carries them into the world, and how that first act of risk creates a space others can step into and help shape. Enjoy.
Let's get into it.
I love it. Yes, please, let's do that. What is the source principles, or are the source principles, better said? How would you explain it to someone, and how is it relevant to, for example, project or organizational design?
So credits here firstly go to Peter Koenig. He started the research into source beneath other topics like money. So he's into essential questions. And there have been many other people adding to this. So it's built in several layers. And it's important to know that this comes from investigating how businesses and organizations are successful. So it's you observe something and then you, like I said, you look for a pattern that's emerging. And so what I want to make explicit is that Peter Koenig developed a language for something that was already existing. So I just briefly looked into also stories, for example, that I know from indigenous communities. I see certain patterns there that they just intuitively have embedded in their own systems. So it's just it adds a language that works for probably mostly people from the Western Hemisphere, but still much more. But it's it's not an invention, but a description. So that's what I would like to place there first. And the first thing is, or the first observation is, in each human initiative, this initiative got to life by somebody taking a risk to bring an idea into life. And this person is referred to as source. And the key thing here is it's one person that takes a risk. So we quite often walk through life with tons of ideas. And we also share these ideas like, Moh, would it not be great too? The question is, when does a risk come into the situation? And this can be completely different. Sometimes it's like sharing something with somebody else and saying, and then you risk your reputation. Somebody's sometimes it's investing money, sometimes it's time.
Sounds like an uncomfortable process, basically.
And it's about one person because you bring this idea to life. So there can be, in a certain situation, two people coming together, but mostly it's one person inviting that whole process. And so this is one of the first things that mostly receives a certain rejection, that it comes back to, in a temporal order, that first person who took that risk.
When someone takes a risk to bring an idea into the world, it doesn't stay contained. They have become source. They have created a space, a field that others can step into and help shape.
So that's the first principle that you could say. The second thing is now then, by taking a risk and becoming a source, you start a creative field. So you attract people by saying, for example, I would like to record that podcast. Then you step into you took a certain risk, you become a source, and then you have people joining or not joining, or even people saying, okay, I could contribute the music, I could contribute ideas, I could contribute. So, and important is that the source is has a certain responsibility for this field, and the vision and also the boundaries of what's not part of the field is linked to the source. So you cannot say, oh, let's just have a process of developing a vision. It's rather about uncovering that vision or purpose that is already brought in by the source, but that also quite often is implicit or not yet clear. So you, for example, might have sent me something about, hey, join me on that podcast, and it had like 3 lines of something, but I might even more maybe connect to like what you didn't say.
Let me just repeat that. So the source is not, or when you're trying to come up with a new idea, it's not necessarily about discovering that idea, but rather uncovering the source, or what's maybe in between the lines of what's coming from the source.
Thank you for listening to The Regenerative Edge. In our next episode, Johannes from Unity Effect takes us deeper into the source principles, unpacking fractional sources, hidden patterns, and what responsibility really looks like in practice. To continue the discussion yourself, you can visit the website in our description. The Regenerative Edge is stewarded by Zebra Growth, an agency working to shift the marketing landscape for intention and practice towards a regenerative approach that nurtures resilience, cultivates connection, and redefines what success can mean. This podcast is also nourished by the talent and insight of our foundational partners, Unity Effect and Tandem, who you'll meet throughout Season 1. Walk to the edge with us. The bridge is wide enough for all.